Hello guys, here is another game that I played with my opponent who's another grandpa, and this game was particularly very rich in tricky moves. Let's just have a look on this one. E4, C5. I came up with the reply which announced the game, which happens to be very popular in all the kind of levels of players. This opening's name is Sicilian, and C3, you name it, a Lapin variation, which renowned to be very solid opening choice in response of Sicilian. Knight f3, c3, e6, preparing d5 push, knight f3, knight c6, so far classic, d4 push, takes, black takes, white takes, and here's the first inaccuracy. In my opinion, I should have played here d5 in order to stop the possible push, and here we got somewhat a variation of French without this pawn on c3. But what actually happened in the game was knight f6, knight c3, bishop b5, creating a pin towards the king, and I'm actually already threatening to win the pawn, so my opponent just reinforces the pawn, castle, and this happens to be a huge blunder, castle in this position. I still had an option to play d5 in this position, but I didn't play this, because after this I could have played anything, actually, anything, but the best was knight d5, because you can take, but this is tricky, because after taking he cannot retake because of the pin, remember? So he could have played knight g5. I would have just taken the pawn. We could just exchange the pieces here, castle, and after the castle, bishop takes, pawn takes, and knight check. Black's position is really attractive, but I chose the most conventional way to play. Castle neglected the next move of my opponent, which is castle. He could have played e5 right away, but he chose to castle. Here is the thing, I still can play d5, I guess, but d5 isn't that good now, because after the same sequence as the previous one, White's knight is no longer pinned, so he can just take the pawn, and this pawn is protected twice, so he can just win my queen there. So there's no such option anymore. So my move is a6 to prepare b5 push, and actually to try to develop finally my white squared bishop, that the black's position is kind of crumpled, right? So after h6, I've tried to stop the possible aggression towards my king. White now finally commits, and e5. I've had few options there, but I've chose actually the most passive one, knight e8. Actually, I didn't have much choice there, because if I've played this move after h3, I got nothing else to do. I'm just the best sequence of moves is there. I would just lose my piece, but after knight e8, I hoped for d6 push and or f6 push in order to actually undermine his pawn chain, but it never happened. I can already tell you. b5, bishop d2, b5, bishop h7 check, king h8, bishop d3. Actually, those moves are not really contributing white's position, but it's okay. It's not a mistake either. Bishop b7. I finally put in my white squared bishop on the potentially active square. Queen c1. We can feel it right in the air that the white is plotting something, right? And this is the case. And we can say that there is a decisive, a critical mistake that the evaluation just completely turned. h6. So h6, there is a simple logic behind this move. After black takes, black's king is just checkmated. So black cannot take, simply cannot take in this position. So I just lost the pawn, and very important one, because after losing this pawn, my king is kind of exposed, and this is only the matter of time that he gets checkmated. And you can see the evaluation here is extremely high, extremely dominant for white side. This is compared to 1 rook plus 1 pawn, whereas I've lost just 1 pawn so far. So he drops his piece back on f4, and I'm trying kind of create a counterplay, maybe looking for winning this bishop or taking this knight. But after queen d3 and exchange, I still had I had possible way to defend by playing g5, which is really an extremely hard move to come up with, since this move weakens my king side even more. I play queen e7, and here the end embraces my position. Knight g5, simple fact that he's attacking this square, and after g6 he could have played this move, and this is the end because I got no defense whatsoever. So after knight g5, I've played f5, and I hoped for en passant here. Pawn takes f6, so I could have taken with my knight, but even though it would give exactly the same, so here this is just a mate in one. I'm actually not sure that I've seen this coming, but I've already known this is pretty disastrous. So this was my game against a quite strong opponent. Managed to exploit my weaknesses, my low knowledge on the opening, and this gave me quite wonderful lesson for the future. Like and subscribe, guys, if you enjoyed this video, and see you for the next one.